Your dad was very high up in the Australian Police Force.
In the New South Wales Police, yeah.
New South Wales Police Force. Do you think that it's just always been in your blood? Did you watch your dad go?
I mean, I think that what I came to realise after I did join was that I understood a lot about the police.
Yeah, right.
And I've often said to people, that I kind of grew up with the police around me, so I knew what that was like, and understood more of the culture and why, and how things were done. But of course, I never had intent to join. It was not something I'd ever really thought about until very much when I finished high school. But so it wasn't something women did.
Yeah.
Because there were so few of them, and I think that's. So I understood the police, and it was very helpful. And he's been, great. Once he kind of got used to the idea I was joining.
Was he a bit against you joining?
Yes, very much so.
Wow, isn't that funny?
Yeah, very much so. Well, it was in 72, and I was 18 and a half. And I think he just saw that there were so few women in the police, and their career options were so limited and I think he just felt like the girls got a hard time. And that it wasn't really something you'd want to put your daughter into.
Right.
And so he thought I should be a nurse or a kindergarten teacher.
Yes.
I think he still thinks that, actually. And so, how fathers are a bit like that. That's kind of it. You can go off and do those things.
Yeah.
Or a secretary.
Yes.
And that was, that was the era.
Totally. It's a different time.
A long time ago, before you were born.
Yeah.
And so it's that era that the limited range of things women could do. And we didn't have money. And so, there were university fees, and my brother was going to university. So it wasn't as though you collected a debt, you paid,
Right.
So that was part of it. So it just never the idea of joining. But when I did, think about it, he said, no, look, it's, terrible. There's no future. You won't ever be able to go very far in it.
Funny.
All of that sort of thing. And then eventually, Mum, I guess, and I turned him around, and I used to say it was a bit like an overwhelming force, my mother and I.
Yeah.
And he kind of gave up.
Don't mess with the women.
And then became helpful in me joining. So.
Right. And so what was it like when you first joined? You were young, not many women there.
Well, I got to tell you the bit about being young, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, because you sort of don't know what you're supposed to be afraid of. You don't know, hopefully, in many cases you're sort of thinking about, well, I'll just give this a try. And for me to start with, of course, it was, I was fit. I played netball and basketball and, did all those things. So I was really fit. I did well at school, but not, spectacularly. I could have done better if I had tried harder. But and so joining the police, there were hundreds of women wanting to join, but very few were ever taken in. And so the year that I joined, they took 6.
Wow. Out of how many?
Well, there would have been 400 or 500 on the list. 6 is all they took. Of course, there was a quota, and the quota limited how many women there could be. And there were only 130 positions, and so you had to wait till someone retired or died, or worse, got pregnant.
Oh,
you see,
yes.
Of course, if you got pregnant, you couldn't stay.
Yeah, right. So you lost your job.
Yes, of course. And before that, actually, if you got married, you lost your job too.
Really?
Oh, no, that was the era. Well, that was a lot of occupations. In the 60s, the idea was that if you got married, your husband was going to look after you. You didn't need a job, and therefore get out of the workforce and let more men have jobs. You were taking a man's job. That's the model. That's what happened in the 60s. Wow. And that kind of changed in the 60s. And so, and then into the 70s, we still didn't have maternity leave for women when I joined. And it was really, though, the sort of circumstances around the police. So the numbers of women, was limited by a quota. And only when they left did they hire, because nobody wanted to expand the quota, the number of women. And so I joined with another woman in October 1972, and and went from there. And so, but we did limited range of duties as well. But starting out in the police, I kind of knew that we would lecture kids, or we would take sexual assault statements, or deal with young girls who were runaways. And sometimes, you if you typed well, which I never learned to type.
Right.
I was never going to learn to type.
Yes.
Because all you
strategically, you didn't want to learn to type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you'd end up, with that's where you'd end up. So it probably for the first couple of years, I kind of went along to get along.
Right.
You know, and I got paid well. We used to get equal pay, always got equal pay actually. And superannuation was available then, it wasn't before. And then in the next couple of years, maternity leave, because we had a change of government in New South Wales.
Right.
And with the women's movement, maternity leave came in as well for the police.
Right.
So things are starting to change. And then I suppose for me, I guess I got to about 21 and started to sort of look around and think, is this it? I'd started to go to TAFE. So I was just studying at night, 2 nights a week, doing personnel administration, and I really liked it. But I'd also started to think about the limited role and responsibilities for women and thought, this has got to change. You know, the world's got to be different to this. And what I knew was we had to work in operational policing. We had to actually get out to do the operational street stuff, which we were never allowed to do before that. And so I was elected at 21 to be the head of the Women Police branch of the Police Association. And the average age of the women in the organisation at that stage was probably about 30-something.
Right.
And I think I got the job pretty much because I had nothing to lose.